Well, hey, welcome to week 1 of Starting Point. You have taken an important step in getting to know other people and in growing your faith. Welcome. I know that you're sitting around a table or perhaps in a home, and there are some strangers across from you. And even when you were driving over here, maybe you drove over with someone, your spouse, your girlfriend, whoever it might be, and you're going, okay, should we really go to this thing or should we not? There's still time to turn around. And then there's that awkward moment of, who are these people? Maybe they're crazy. You know, all of those things. Don't worry. You're going to get to know each other tonight and the weeks moving forward. And I promise you, you're going to like each other. You're going to learn things about each other. You're going to be around. You're going to find people that are just like you, and you're going to be amazed at the commonalities. And you're going to be around people that are different than you. And that's good. You need people that are different from you in your life. So you've really taken an important step. I know that, one of the things we say around here at River Pointe, especially if you've been to our meet and greet, then you've heard, hey, listen, if you've been attending church for about 8 months and you're not in some type of small group, then you're just waiting to leave. And that's what we found, is that people that have been around church, after a while, it just isn't quite enough to just listen to the Sunday sermons or the weekend sermons and be able to come in and go out. I mean, there's a deeper desire to want to be known and to know other people. And that's what this is about. You know, Patrick often says around here that, you know what? I mean, you have got to do something to take the initiative in your own faith. It is not our job. It's not his job for you to grow spiritually. That's on you. That's your job. And so he often says, do something for goodness sake. I mean, go Google something if you have to, but take a step in getting to know God, in answering your questions and figuring this thing out. And you're doing something because you're in Starting Point, and you're going to learn some great things, and you're going to be doing those things that he's talking about in taking a step to get to know other people. And you're going to have the opportunity to serve while you're doing Starting Point, and you're going to be growing in your faith because you're going to know a little bit more about the Bible and about God and about Jesus than you used to. And so those are all important steps. But we definitely wouldn't start with the assumption that everybody in here has this deep belief in God. We wouldn't assume that everybody here is a Christian. We wouldn't assume that everyone here even believes in God. We always say around River Pointe that this is a great place to process your doubts. And Starting Point is an especially great place to process your doubt because this is the place where we want you to ask questions. And so we hope that you feel comfortable. We hope that you just feel like you can be yourself. No one's trying to pretend here. There's no quiz afterwards. We're not looking for the right answers. We're just looking for people to be themselves and be able to ask questions and share some opinions. We're going to look at the Bible a little bit. We're going to talk about each other's lives. You're going to hear life stories. And so I promise you that if you commit to the 6 weeks of doing this, you are going to walk out going, wow, I am so glad that I did this thing because you accomplished all those things that we talked about. So we know that not everybody in here believes that God exists, and I relate to that person. I have a heart for that person because I was at a spot in my life once upon a time where I wasn't sure. You know, I kind of got to a spot, and for me it was in college. I grew up in a Christian home, and it was fantastic. I had wonderful parents, had a little bit of the Leave It to Beaver family where everything was good, and had a few traumatic things in my life. But when I got to college, that was really when I started to try to figure out, okay, who exactly is God, and why exactly do I even go to church? And so it really got me to thinking, is God really out there? Maybe this stuff is all made up. And one of the things that really got to me was that, I'm a person that I was born in America, therefore I'm a Christian, right? I mean, a lot of people in America are, so I guess I'm just a product of the culture. But the next thought was, well, I know that America's not the center of the universe. It's certainly not the population center. I mean, 40% of the world's over in India and China. And so if I would have been born in, say, the Middle East somewhere, let's say Saudi Arabia, well, I'd be a Muslim, right? If I was born in India, I'd be Hindu. And so am I just okay with just being a product of my culture. And it just didn't quite add up to me. And I thought, you know what? I don't know if God's out there at all. But I'm certainly not okay with just kind of this thought that I'm just a product of the place that I've been born. And so it really set me on this journey of wanting to find out the truth. And there may be some of you here tonight that you're kind of sitting there going, you know what? I don't know if God's out there either. I mean, maybe he is. I kind of hope he is. A lot of times I really doubt that he is based on what's going on in the world or based on what's happened to you as a child or some traumatic experiences. I mean, you really have your doubts as to whether God is out there. And so here's one thing that you'll hear throughout Starting Point. It's this statement. If God exists, then nothing is more important than getting to know him. Conversely, if God does not exist, then nothing is more important than forgetting him. I mean, that's a true statement. Listen to it again. If God exists, then nothing is more important than knowing him. If God does not exist, then nothing is more important than forgetting him. I mean, think about the importance of that statement. I mean, if God isn't out there, then why do we go to church? Are we just kind of up for a good kind of moral talk? You know, somewhere we're kind of showing up going, man, I hope the speaker's good this week because I really need to be motivated to be a better parent or be more moral. But if God doesn't exist, then what is morality in the first place? Because I'd feel better about setting my own agenda than having some sort of standard that was obviously made up by man, and I'm a man, so why can't I make up my own standard? I mean, it's just kind of a slippery slope, as you see, right? But why even play church? Why go to church? Why, do all of these religious things if God's not out there? I mean, it's a pretty important question. Why pray? Why hope in something after life? Why not just go through life however you want? Because then the choices are a little bit easier. Okay, am I just going to live for myself? I mean, you can still be a good humanitarian, go help others and things like that. And there's lots of people do that, and they don't have God in their life. They don't think. And so if God exists, then boy, he's pretty powerful because he created all this. And we probably ought to get to try to know him the best that we can. But if he doesn't, just forget about it. And then just and lead your own life. But that's an important question to answer. And so those are the types of things that I want you to be thinking about here in week one and just throughout the week, because I know that some of you are wrestling with it. I was someone that wrestled with it very much. I really wanted to know. And obviously you know the answer because I'm standing here and I work for a church, and so the answer is kind of obvious where I came to, but the process was very long in trying to figure out, just exactly who I was and what that meant, if God is indeed out there. Because if God is out there, here's the next question. If God exists, would he reveal himself to us, or would he keep himself a secret? Okay, think about that. Think about the last time that you created something. I know that any time that my son builds a Lego set, the first thing he does is he brings it to me and he goes, look what I made. Any creator, anyone that creates anything, the first thing they want to do is to be able to show someone. They just want to be able to show someone and say, look what I did. Isn't this amazing? I want to share this with you, my experience, my sense of self-pride and self-worth because I did this thing, and here's what it does, here's what I created it for, look at the functions of it, all of those things. And I would think that if God created us, he would also reveal himself to us somehow, because God's creation is pretty impressive. And he would want to share that with us, and he would want to make himself known somehow. And so you've got to ask yourself the question, would God just create and then sit back for his own entertainment? I mean, that's pretty narcissistic and a little bit sick when you take a look at what's going on in the world, right? I mean, that's kind of a strange thought to just kind of create, or is he a God that created and then he went to another universe and he kind of comes back and checks on us? I mean, that's kind of a strange thing too. And so would God reveal himself to us? And this is an important question, because if God did create, he must have had a purpose in creating, because every creation has a purpose within it. No matter what that creation is, there is a purpose for that creation, okay? But what is that purpose? Okay, if God's not keeping himself a secret, how would he make himself known to mankind? And why? Okay, those are some really deep questions right there, more than you probably bargained for in about 5 minutes' time. But I want you to sit back and take a deep breath and think about those things for just a moment. Books and volumes and lifetimes of education have been written and spoken and discussed on this very topic. But what about you? What do you think? What do you think about it? Here's one of the things that you're going to enjoy most in Starting Point is we're going to have a discussion time. We're going to have a little bit of discussion about some of these things that we're talking about. One thing that you've got to do is you've got to do a little bit of math. Okay, so if you've got 8 people at your table and you have 15 minutes to discuss, okay, you figure out just about how long you have each to speak. And so if there's a person at your table that is talking and they just keep talking and talking and talking and talking, if you don't know who that person might be, then it might be you. And if you're a long-winded person, then be careful. Try to keep your answers concise. These aren't supposed to be, a big long speech. It's just meant to be just a little bit of get to know you, nice and safe, a little bit from a distance, and looking back a little bit on your life and be able to talk about these 3 things. Here they are. Number 1, how did you find River Pointe? Pretty easy. How did you find River Pointe? When did you start coming to church? Maybe this is the first thing you've done with River Pointe. I don't know. Okay, second one. Why on earth did you sign up for this group experience? Why did you sign up for Starting Point? And part B of that question, would you consider this a starting point, a restarting point, or something else? Okay? And the last question, the third question, what role has God played in your story up until now? If God has played any role whatsoever. So, what role has God played in your story up until now? Maybe as a child, as an adult, through the whole history, okay? So, you've got 15, maybe 20 minutes of discussion time, and then I'll be right back, and we will talk a little bit more. There we go. Okay, we are back, and hope that you had a good discussion. I know that you could go on for an hour on that topic because you really begin to hit on some interesting things, some interesting background that each of you share. I'm sure that somebody was sharing and you went, oh, wow, that sounds a lot like when I was growing up as a kid and things like that. You may have had some other interesting discussion about, yeah, I do kind of, I'm not so sure about God and if he exists and if he's out there and all of that. One thing that we always encourage people with is that if you have questions, go get the answers. Okay? If there's something in your way that you're like, you know what, I would believe in God if I just knew X. Well, go look at it. Go research. I was that type of guy. If you might be an engineer, you might have some sort of analytical mind, and you just may need to know. Well, go dive into it because it's an important question. Because you're basing your life on it one way or another. And so go find the answer to that question, because I believe that if you seek the truth, you'll find it. And because it's out there, the truth is out there, and you can go find it. But you just got to take some initiative. I didn't have the benefit of Google back in my day. I had to go to the library and figure this whole thing out. So, go figure the question out. We do give you a couple of resources each week at Starting Point. This week's resource, you'll get it via email. It's this little, it's a kind of a brochure, an e-brochure. It's called Intelligent Design. And so we get a lot of people around here that they have that question, I don't know, I'd like to see some evidence as to whether God's out there or not. We'll send you that. We'll also send you something called Answers to Evolution. It's especially good if you have teenagers and they're taking a biology class or something in school. These are helpful things to know. And again, we're always available to answer questions about anything that you have, regarding the Bible. So, but speaking of the Bible The Bible is something that we look at here, obviously at River Point. We pull it out every week. Patrick teaches from it, and it's a great book to read. It's fantastic. It's full of history. It's full of poetry. It's full of drama. It's full of murder. It's full of it's full of sex. It's full of all sorts of things. And so the Bible, we open it up every week because we believe that the Bible is our best source of information about who God is, why he created, and what our purpose in life is. And so we look at the Bible, but you might kind of look at the Bible and go, isn't it just another book? Isn't it just another book written by another guy? Maybe they're creative, and yeah, maybe there is some history in it, but I don't know. It seems like there's some agenda. Maybe there's like a political agenda behind it, because I hear a lot about that on TV and the radio and, the Christian groups and, what really is the Bible about? And so we want to take a look at the Bible, and we want you to have a certain amount of confidence as you're going to the Bible to where you can say, okay, what the Bible says is something that I can trust. It's something that has been weighed over the course of time and found to be true. One thing that Patrick says around here a lot is that he'll hear from people, the Bible is just so full of inconsistencies. It's so full of contradictions, and one of the questions he'll ask people is he'll say, okay, well, show me one. Just here, I've got a Bible right here. Open it up and show me one. And of course, the people can never do it. They're just kind of regurgitating something that maybe they heard in college, maybe something they read, maybe they had a bad experience with church, because a lot of us have had bad experiences with churches, right? And so sometimes we throw out the baby with the bathwater. And so if you have those questions, if you really do think that there's inconsistencies, then go find out, dive into it, and figure out, okay, is there really some sort of contradiction in here that invalidates what is being claimed by the Bible? Go after it. But it's a great question to ask. Can I really trust the Bible for what it means for my life? Can I really trust the Bible and what it's saying about my life? Why should I trust it? How can I possibly consider it God's word to mankind? That's what we want to take a look at. And here's some things that were helpful for me. But before we explore that question, maybe it's a little bit more important right now to go up 10,000 feet and take this 10,000 foot up view of just exactly what the Bible is, okay? Who wrote it? When was it written? What's the story beyond? How long has it been around? How was it put together? Who took the time to put all those numbers by the verses? That didn't happen until about 1300, by the way, so don't say you didn't learn anything tonight. Okay, maybe this will help. The Bible is a set of 66 books, combinations of letters, historical records, sayings, and poetry that were written by 40 different authors over the course of about 1,500 years, between the years of 1500 BC and about 100 AD. So that's about 1,600 years. In essence, the Bible is a record of the relationship between God and man, both in the past and what it should look like today and in the future. Okay, consider this. Many parts of the Old Testament, okay, this is what we would call the Old Testament, the Jews call it the Hebrew Bible. Okay, the Old Testament is a series of 39 books, series of 39 books that are divided between historical books, poetic books, as well as prophetic books, okay? And so the combination of really those three main things make up the basic content of the Old Testament. And so various authors of the Old Testament, but it's interesting that many parts of the Old Testament, they've been validated by archaeological discoveries, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are the oldest biblical records that exist. And when they found these Dead Sea Scrolls, these were some of the original documents that were written, like the book of Isaiah. It was found, and it was dated to be 400 or 500 years before the birth of Christ. It was the oldest document they had. And you know what they found? They found that it was the exact same thing as what we have today. It was the exact same thing. It hasn't changed. I mean, you can look at all of the other religions of the world, and over the course of time, as culture has changed, as values have changed, a lot of times they'll go, ooh, this isn't really popular anymore, and so we're going to kind of scratch this out. We're going to pretend like it never existed, and we're going to move forward with this new document. And the Bible didn't. I mean, there's some stuff in the Bible that, honestly, it makes me uncomfortable. I look at it and I go, ooh, gosh, that makes it really hard right now. But are you going to trust the culture as it just changes? Because the culture changes a lot over the course of time, right? I mean, I'll just give you an example. Are there some things 30 years ago that everybody just considered, okay, that is wrong, that's never going to happen, we'll never see that happen in our day, and then 30 years later, it's happening, and everybody thinks that it's just normal. I mean, culture, it changes so much, and so when there's no standard for people to work from, it just kind of shifts all over the place, and that's what happens with other religious documents. Other religious documents have also been written in one sitting. And that's different than the Bible that was written by 40 different authors over the course of time, which people said, okay, this is a valid document. This really is from God, and we can take it as the truth. The accounts of the New Testament, which is a set of 27 books, that was written, obviously from the time of Christ. For about 100 years maximum, and that set of books, there have been so many things. Other historians, other what we would call extra biblical records, records outside of the Bible that validate that the things in the New Testament that were written about and that were recorded, they actually happened. And so there are several outside resources that validate the claims of the Bible, the history of the Bible, the heritage of the Bible, I mean, all of those things. And so it is a very real and reliable book. Well, one of the things that really impressed me as I was thinking about, okay, how did they keep those records? I mean, they didn't have the printing press until about 1300, 1400 AD, and it was this, that they took the scriptures so seriously that when they would copy the records, I mean, they just didn't go over to the copy machine and press print. I mean, when they copied it down, they would write it on something called papyrus. And here was the process that they would do. They would have what was called a scribe. He would have his pen or writing utensil, whatever it might be, the original Bic, and he would sit down and he would have the document that he's copying on his left, and then he would have his papyrus, his paper, on the right. And he would look over and he would see some type of Hebrew or Greek letter, and he would, let's say it's the letter A, and he would look over and he'd look at it and he'd go, A, okay, A. And then he would look at the next letter, okay, C, and then the next letter, K. And then he would, go back and forth. Now, the interesting thing was that there would be someone over his shoulder, standing over his shoulder, checking both documents. So he would look at the document, and then he would look at the scribe that was writing each letter, and he would go back and forth. And so there was a spell checker, a human spell checker that was right there. They had standards as to how the Bible was copied. They would have to take mandatory breaks. Every hour on the hour, they'd have to get up, they'd have to stretch, or they'd have to do some type of deal to kind of clear the cobwebs out, because it's a very monotonous process. But this would be like the Bible, or what they would call a scroll, for like the entire town, And so it was a very valuable document, and they took it seriously because they really felt like it was indeed the Word of God. And if there was a mistake, even one letter on the page, they would scratch it out, they would throw it away, and they would start over. So, I mean, they really took it seriously. But again, how's the Bible put together? Think of it in sections, okay? And we'll throw up a little graphic so that you can see it, okay? Okay, the Hebrew Bible, what we would call the Old Testament, it contains 39 books. Okay, there's the sections of it. There's the books of the law, okay? There's a lot of great history in there as well. There is the history after the Hebrews enter into the Promised Land, okay? There's poetry, and then there are the major prophets, those are the bigger books, and then there are the minor prophets, the smaller books. And then we have the New Testament, We have the Gospels, which are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 4 different historical accounts about the life of Jesus. And then there's one book that we categorize as church history, the book of Acts. And then there are the letters, which you'll find a little bit of history in there as well. But the letters, most of which, let me see, yes, all of those were written by Paul, from Romans through Philemon. And then you've got some general letters that were written by other apostles. And then the very last book of the Bible, Revelation, which is a prophetic book. And so that's kind of a general overview of what the books of the Bible are. And so, our hope by doing this partially is that you'd be able to get into Starting Point and you'd go, okay, I don't know anything about the Bible. And we know that many people in your group, perhaps in this larger class that we're in, that there's a lot of people that you've never cracked open a Bible, or maybe the last time that you did, you couldn't even understand it, so you kind of set it aside and went, okay, I don't know, that just sounds really, really hard. Our hope is that you would be able to find out a few things over the course of the 6 weeks in the midst of discussing the sermons and discussing your own lives and your own opinions about various things we're talking about, and be able to walk into one of the weekend services and go, okay, I remember he talked about a little bit about like these prophet guys, and now Patrick's talking about it too, and so I kind of get where that fits a little bit, and that's really the hope, is that you'd be able to approach the weekends with a little bit more confidence and not be afraid and be able to jump into the discussion a little bit more readily, and so that's the hope of what we're doing. But what we're going to transition to right now is do a little bit of sermon discussion, show a little clip from this last weekend service, and then we'll launch into some questions. So, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.